Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Leese.
I'm Jonathan Byer. Hi.
Jonathan, I've missed you.
I have missed you also, Dave.
Jonathan, this is our Worlds recap and other
Junior
things.
World. Junior World.
Junior World. This is going to be a messy show. I look like tired old shit. I was away this weekend. It's been daylight savings time. We both crammed in on Junior Worlds. You know, there's a lot going on.
I said to Dave before we started the show, I was like, I feel like I just crammed for a test, like in the period right before.
Yeah, it'll be great. You know, so I really didn't watch live. I mean, I did watch the video of Trusova landing the quads, but it's so funny. People were like tweeting at us being like, when is your recap going to be up? And I was like, when am I going to watch the competition? I cannot answer that.
Yeah, I was like, a recap of what? Oh, Junior Worlds, right? That's happening. That's the thing. Yeah.
I've had a little bit of a skating hangover also. I've just...
Yeah. And apparently so did some of the skaters themselves.
It's funny though, is because I'm not one of those people, like, we have some people who are commenting who are, you know, litigating the Olympic results constantly on our website or planning for Worlds, and I'm like, I'm waiting for everyone to withdraw, aren't you? And that's what's been happening. So let's do a rundown.
Being shocked when people are withdrawing from Worlds, and I was like, I'm withdrawing from Worlds. I feel
so. There's one person who comments on our Twitter. I don't even know. It's like Lori Jaros, but there's like Lori with it's spelled differently, like Laurey. She is very upset and offended that Adam is pulling out of Worlds. And I thought, have you listened to his interview? He pretty much thought that was the best he was ever going to do. He wants to be known as a funny person, and then someone will say, oh, he went to the Olympics. Did you know that? And then he's also living his fame moment. He doesn't seem to have any desire to be doing this. I
would much rather them say that right away and then give the opportunity to someone.
I have enjoyed our viewers who, you know, Ashley unfollowed him and then followed him, and it was like news on the skating world. Let's see.
Now we're really into skating, Dave. Like, for the average person, people are like, "Whoa, Jonathan! Like, you are super into skating." But even I find myself at certain points being like, wow, some of these people are really into skating. Yes. I was like, I can't. Do you not work? Do you not?
Sorry, Christine Brennan just contacted us. She wanted to know if we had someone's number so that she could ask about Richard Callahan. We'll get to that.
Yeah, sure. Like 20 years after the fact, we'll get to it.
Yeah, that's really strange too, Jonathan. I have like a lot of thoughts on that. I believe Craig, though. That I always have.
But so has everyone that has already known this whole scandal for 20 years.
Yes.
You even talked about it with Todd on your show.
Yes.
Oh, well.
I've always believed that it happened because there have been so many reports and there are so many people. And because we've been on the show with Jenny, people always come up and they whisper about Richard. They're like, I worked with him. Or, and you're like, yeah. And all of the stories, I mean...
But you broached the subject with Todd. You broached the subject with Todd Eldridge when you did the interview with him.
Yes.
And you were being respectful and kind of skirting around it, but it was very clear that's what you were talking about. And again, it's just like unusual to me to think that this is new news.
So, yeah. And I thought it was interesting, John Jackson gave a statement. And then, first of all, we got so off track, but let's just go into the Richard thing. Then Hanyu pulled out of Worlds, and I think Javier did too, right? Who cares? Okay. I mean, I care, but... Oh, and Medvedeva has a foot injury. Sui has a foot injury. They're out.
And I love the articles that translate, right? You know, I mean, obviously, like, Google Translate is one of the funniest things ever. And I think there was... Who cares? I was about to go on a tangent. But it said, Yevgenia Medvedeva, parentheses, foot.
Yes! On ESPN! What was that in the headline? Yes.
And that's like... Also known as foot?
Known as foot. Yes, that was strange.
Yeah, exactly.
That was on ESPN. That wasn't even like a translation.
Yeah.
Also, Jonathan, what's really strange is that so I downloaded the ESPN app to watch gymnastics, and
Oh,
you know, it streams sometimes, and you can watch meets. So when news like alerts, like Medvedeva pulling out, will come up on my phone. It'll be like da na na da na na, tones. If you have the ESPN app, like I have no. It doesn't ring. Like my phone buzzes. It doesn't ring when anyone calls. I think that's so obnoxious. But
oh, it includes the audio even though you have it on like silent.
yes, but the app. But actually, I don't want to turn it off because sometimes I feel very masculine. I'm like, oh, some like football or basketball player I don't know signed a 50 million 2-year deal today. I was like, oh, okay. So
But really, it's just foot. Okay.
yes,
Okay.
Evgenia Medvedeva (parentheses foot close
Foot.
paren). Yeah.
Okay.
So. Yeah, straight, and I think those are our list of people. I think Mariah is still going to Worlds. Everyone else, we can get to that.
But Christine and Richard Callahan.
Christine and Richard Callahan, yes. So if you've read Little Girls in Pretty Boxes or looked into the articles in the 90s, or you ever go on Lori Kim's website, Rainbow on Ice, back when we knew that all the skaters were gay, but you couldn't really talk about it, and there were very few people who were out and skating, and then over time they came out, or they were outed after they died, or anything like that. There were a lot of articles about this, about Richard. Susie Wynn talked about it. She talked about the fact that Richard Callahan
would go on dates.
I'm sorry?
Didn't he escort like them?
No, didn't escort her. Like, he showed up when she was on dates, like, creepily. So there have always been a lot of stories about he was controlling. And I don't know. I honestly, I'm not remembering what Jenny has said on the show versus what she has said off the show. He was not nice to Jenny Kirk.
Right.
Richard was not nice to her. I also did an interview with Tara Lipinski back when I was blogging as Aunt Joyce. She said, my coach said that I looked fat in my Little Women dress. Well, if you know who her coach was, you know, he would say things to the girls like, I see the cellulite on your legs, and Kimmy didn't have a good experience with him, and she was actually supposed to go there to train with Todd, and then was like, he was still touring, so she wound up stuck with Richard, and and when we interview her eventually, we will discuss all of this. You know, I sent it to a lot of people. When it happened, it was just, you know, I think I don't want to talk too much about Todd because, you know, he told his truth, and, you know, there have always been so many speculation and rumors about this, and, you know, it's unfair to him. I think as far as Richard goes, but there were so many men at the time, and I actually tweeted about this during the Me Too situation, and when Nasser was coming up, I thought, you know, it's only a matter of time before skating's next. I mean, there are so many coaches who have been involved with students. Now, whether you're 18, whether you're 17, 16, 15, whether you're 19 or 20, it's still inappropriate. And it may be legal, but it's also an abuse of power. And then you get into rape and coercion, and, you know, that is even uglier. But there are a lot of very inappropriate things that go on in skating, and there's a lot of alcohol involved, and competitions, and all sorts of things. And I think with this situation with Craig, I believe that talking to someone, and I don't know 100%, but I know that they're back when this happened, there was discussion about how old was he when the relationship supposedly happened. You know, was he 18? Was he, you know, younger? And if you look at it in that lens, it was like, oh, well, if someone was 18, it's fine. And he's still saying, like, no, it was inappropriate, and it was... Well,
the idea... Now, I'm not so well versed on the specifics of safe sport, as they refer to it, but I would think that, and I think, and I don't want to talk out of turn, but I think Shaylin maybe was mentioning that it doesn't matter about age, but any kind of relationship between a coach and a student, it may not have been Shaylin, but it was someone like that was saying just that dynamic.
On our show?
I thought so.
Yeah, because we had asked her about Nikolai. We actually took a question out. That's one of the only times we ever have on the show, is because we asked her about it. that, and then we wound up taking it out back in the day because
regardless
yeah.
of age, I would think.
But that was her gist, and yes, so she did talk about that because she was not the only one, and she wound up marrying him, and she was of age and
Right.
well into adulthood. I think with that, and we can talk about him because he relates into this later, and with Callahan and with Craig, if you look at it from today's lens, the New York Times article from 1999 by Jeree Longman was absolutely have gotten him banned so quickly today for what he did, and then he was banned, and it is amazing that how different 20 years go by. It was not a surprise that this happened. It does make the USFS look quite bad that they didn't take it more seriously, because even if they didn't believe him, I believe that they wanted a skater to come out within a certain amount of time and come forward, and that none of the males that were listed, I think, said it explicitly. I believe that some of the stories were secondhand from other people who saw or overheard things, but they weren't the actual victim themselves. But Susie Wynn actually supported Craig back then, and I know that she had reached out to Jenny during her career when she was commentating, and many others, because I believe that you remember the Manly Woman when she interviewed Jenny? Did you ever listen to that episode? So she was saying she got really uncomfortable when Jenny said that she didn't really like Richard as a coach, and she was like, but he was so good for Nicole Bobek and for Todd. And I've always found that strange because Allison Manley actually skated in Philadelphia, so at that same club, I believe, so she would have heard the rumors, but he was kind of like a bully, I think, to the girls, is kind of what and that's, I think, why he worked for Nicole in a weird way.
Right.
But I've always found it very negative, and I always found it really interesting is that when you watch Todd and Richard, when Todd got off the ice in Nagano and he didn't do well, they have the strangest interaction in the kiss and cry. And Richard says something like, "We'll deal with this," and they seem like a unit. And it doesn't seem like normal coach and skater dynamic, and it just is like a very weird situation, like of how someone to act. Like there's
it's one of those. A lot of the judges knew also.
Yes.
I remember Olympic level judges wondering if they were going to have to stage an intervention
yes.
at the rink and just kind of take care of things because things were getting out of control.
Literally, now, everyone knew in skating, like everyone has known this, and everyone knows about so many of these situations. So,
and I remember you and Jenny discussing like when she went to Richard.
Mm-hmm.
What he had to offer was structure for people who lacked it almost exclusively. Mm-hmm. And in that she found technically it was so limited mm-hmm. that, I mean, really, for someone who was such a factor for a hot second, mm-hmm. he all but fell off the face of the earth. I know he was like coaching the occasional junior girl or something like that in Texas or whatever was happening. But he really did, for someone that had such high level names for a period of time, just vanished as quickly,
Well, if you go back and you watch Jenny's short, that's when Richard told her that she fell on purpose at Worlds in 2004 and was screaming at her. I believe it was in qualifying. By the time she finished the short, I know that after she fell, you can see her get off the ice and she completely bypasses him and doesn't even speak to him. And as like, it's the most icy, like she's done, and then she sat on the other side of the bench in the kiss and cry. He was also with Angela when she looked like she was dead inside when she was skating to the Mummy and looked miserable. I know Kimmy had some experiences as well. So it's interesting. It's I know Shizuka was there for a while. I don't think she was very happy. It's just interesting when you see all these skaters.
What's the point of a federation if not to intervene at that moment?
Yeah.
Seems unusual.
It seems strange, especially, and I know that, it's independent contractors, what is the oversight, but there was so much that was obvious and public, and that everyone knew, but everyone knows about other situations too. So the thing about Craig that's very strange to me, and I do believe Craig, is the fact that he works at a rink. First of all, the rink has had so much drama. Like, it is not just Nikolai. Like, Galit Chait is at this rink, and her father, and they've sued the Ice House and gone back and forth. And at one point, there was a lawsuit. They were saying people were anti-Semitic. And then, this is where Robin Wagner worked when she was banned for soliciting students and was there with Sasha and Sarah Hughes. And that's, there was drama there. There was... also, I'm trying not to get myself in trouble. Sorry.
Fine.
There have been other skaters. When I was in my first adult skating competition, I was on the warm-up with this girl. And my friend, who was a skater, had skated with her at the Ice House. And back then, she was about 13 or 14 and dating her coach, who was... well of age, like maybe in his 40s or 30s or 40s. And sure enough, at my competition, she was then an adult skater, and she was like, "Oh, this is my husband." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, like, it's that guy." Like, and he worked at the Ice House. Then, you have Nikolai, who married his current wife right after she turned 18. He was involved with Ilyinic very publicly when she was not 18. He's been involved with many students. I know the Japanese, reported about it, and all sorts of things. So you think, like, it just seems like if you're going to come out, it just seems like a weird position for me.
Or don't. Yeah, like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
It's just there's a lot of this in skating, and there are way more examples and way more people than we've talked about. So it's uncomfortable, Jonathan, and I think that
especially on the heels of watching Junior Worlds, when you realize how young so many of these people and how vulnerable so many of these people really are.
Well, yeah, because it is such a close relationship, and I think that you have with, like, a teacher or someone that you're with in such pressure situations, and they're pushing you every day, and you develop that very close bond, and that, it's troubling, and
to say the least. Yeah.
I've heard of so many coaches that who can't coach in France. Look, if they really start talking and skating, I'm like, it's a house of cards, Jonathan. Like, it could be bigger than gymnastics in some respects. So, and has been for a very long time. So, yeah,
Speaking of young skaters.
Let's talk about Adam Rippon for a moment. He's been very famous. We also can go there.
He's putting the Fae in famous.
He is. It's very bizarre to see, like, the whole world now know who he is. It's surreal. It's surreal. It's not really bizarre. I think he's handling it well. It looks like he will be very busy for time to come, but God, I am still so on the brain of what I did or did not just say, Jonathan. I'm not sure. Did I cause any legal battles?
I think you're okay. I watched
anything that we said was already public information. I just think we connected dots that other people. Yeah. I'm like, oh my goodness, isn't Robin Wagner's husband like a huge lawyer? By the way, did you ever read that book, Little Girls in Pretty Boxes?
Of course.
Do you remember, like, the two twins where their parents got divorced and the mother took custody of one twin and the father took custody of the other?
Only vaguely. You're going to have to...
But remember, like, they were maybe not the cutest children. Like, there's a photo of them. Like, I think like, they've probably grown into their looks, but, like, they were, like, it was like, oh, when you saw the pictures. I believe, because of the last names, and I did a little Google searching, he went on to marry Robin Wagner. So she went on to marry someone who was so engrossed in skating that he and the wife split, and they, like, the custody of the children. Yeah, Jonathan, yes. Okay, like, yes. Like, it was...
Okay. Now I have to go back and reread it.
Because I remember like flipping through because I was looking at it for something else, and I said, Grossman? Gross? Isn't that... Wait, where are they from? Like, no. Makes so much sense. You know, like, it just... Perfect.
And aside for me is my copy of that book, Little Girls in Pretty Boxes, permanently has water damage because I dropped it in a pool.
Oh. That was like when I was talking to Betty Aquino once, I was just like, so you are the pregnant spider, right? Like that is your, right? And she was like, yes, we were. Yeah, that's correct. You know, because there are certain people you can talk about that too. Like if you meet Kim Zmeskal, you could never be like, so what did Bella call you? Like you can't like, it's Kim Zmeskal. She just seems so like, oh shucks, like with Betty.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
By the way, the Suzanne doll is watching us, and she's we need one of Tarasova. So okay. Oh dear, Jonathan. What else have we? Oh, let's talk about Karen Chen and the Avanta boots.
That was a drama, wasn't it?
That was a drama.
And I'm glad that they stuck. The thing about these things is your words in these spotlights have consequences. So I understand if you're there's a bit of victimology happening, an excuse making with the boots, and I don't know that she understands that they have ramifications to the people that make.
She probably gets her boots discounted or for free or what, you know. And
that's a company that you are. That's slander at some point, not just excuse making.
I mean,
you know?
you can have boot problems and have them be legitimate, but I think it's how much she publicizes. But I think it was the photo, and they were saying that was not the mounting that they did, and that was it.
They have to say something at some point, otherwise. I mean,
and they were saying that the mounting was temporary, and why would you go to the Olympics on a temporary mount? Which is a very good point. But I don't think that I also don't think they handled it well. But it was fascinating to read, and I think I said to someone like they're probably right. But I don't think that they handled it well from a PR perspective. Because now you have all the skating people being like, I will never wear Avanta boots if you talk about your athletes like that. And it's like, well, it's...
Oh, but look at what that athlete was saying about her boots. I mean, that's a tricky situation. Yeah.
It's tricky from both ends. Yeah, so... Because if that's the thing is that, like, who is the last skater on the planet you would want to... endorse your boots? Karen Chen, who literally every competition boot problems. Yeah. She doesn't say like foot problems in my boot. No, it's boot problems, which puts the onus on the company. So yeah, that also a little bit risky when you get into that endorsement. I know you think you're going to solve her boot issues. That's
right. You had to be aware of what you were getting into.
That's like putting Michael Jackson in charge of Safe Sport. You know, like I just don't think that that's like a very good thing.
Correct.
Or like, you know, Richard Callahan on the ethics committee, or you know, like, I just don't. The thing with Richard is those articles they were always saying like, well, at least you know. Well, if he only did it to the boys, we can send the girls to them. Like, that logic is so crazy to me. And the people...
All the logic that we have heard from certain athletes' mouths.
And the weird thing about this is that, like, the same agent who represented Todd represented Jenny, Kimmy, and I believe worked with Richard. But, like, she would have heard the rumors too. You know, like, we all did, you know? And wouldn't you be a little concerned or check it out or feel like, maybe I should steer you... I'm sorry. I said a lot of things last year on Twitter, like after Worlds. Like I was burnt out and over it. And I agree with everything that I said. I think maybe I wouldn't have said it in the same way, but like no, I'm good. I still feel that way. Jonathan, that's crazy. These people are insane in skating. They are House of Cards. Jonathan, that's like bless. You know, I mean, Lord. If people in skating, like...
Makes me feel better about opera, actually.
Yeah, is opera that bad? How inappropriate.
Yeah, but you're dealing with adults. It's a very different situation. So then it's just crazy people, not vulnerable and crazy children. You know what I mean? But,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I don't know who I would send my kid to sometimes if I had to like pick a coach.
Right.
Like,
well, and then Frank Carroll is criticized for being distant, and I was like, I think in this world, distant you might be a little okay with. Like,
yeah, and there are some places where I don't think it's his fault. Although I think he could be warmer, but I think, yeah. Although apparently Jason has been taking some lessons from Frank and Anthony Liu, and will be visiting Laurie Nickel. And
obviously, no shock there if Jason. I mean, that when Jason decided to withdraw from Worlds, like,
yeah, I just don't think he was in.
How could he have? And which program was he keeping up? And if he's made changes or is looking to make changes, like, it's, you know. But actually, in all of these withdrawals, it could be interesting for a lot of those, you know, second echelon kind of people to try to sneak in and have a moment. So I hope that happens for a couple people.
And I heard that Max was actually in Arizona. He was going to start coaching, and at the same rink, I think, where Gracie is, and Doug, and then he's back. And of course, Tom has him ready. I was like, of course. You know, like, when I saw that when Tom Z, when Jason, because we had heard that Jason wasn't going to go to Worlds from friends of ours. Yeah.
Just logistically, how would that have...
And how would that have worked, right? And then we were like, he's listed here? Like, is that a mistake or what? And then all of a sudden, it was like the next day, it was like, oh no, that's not true. And Max is going. And I was like, oh, okay. Because actually, when we heard that Jason was moving or looking for coaches, I actually sent Mark Mitchell a text message and I said, get your champagne ready because Adam is going to be way too famous to go to Worlds. Yeah. Jason is without coach, and I think the USFS is screwed. Yeah. So, yeah.
And we don't know what to expect from Nathan.
I think Nathan will be okay.
Know, is he still coaching with Roth?
I think so. But Roth definitely covered his bases to not blame himself if there wasn't. That was a great interview. That was a page turner.
Yeah.
I felt like it was, like Roth, it was based on a true story, like most Russian interviews. And
based on a theme.
I felt that I have heard that is likely correct, what he said about the changing of the program, and you know, people have said that Jason and his mom do have a strong unit, but a bond, yeah. But that also means that if you're a coach and you're not stepping in, that you're not putting your foot down, that you're afraid to lose your student, because most people would take charge in that situation. So, kind of tells you a lot about the state of U.S. skating right now. Not great.
Apparently run by a PTA. Yeah.
PTA, who, by the way, Safe Sport was like sponsoring gymnastics now. It was not like we've partnered with Safe Sport. It was like sponsoring USA Gymnastics. That was an awkward broadcast too. It's been a tough time in sports. You know, this is
growing pains for sure.
Yeah.
Things are changing. Yeah.
Oh dear. This we got real. I didn't. You know, in my mind, I was like, oh, we should talk about Callahan. We can say things. And then when you...
Yeah, 30 minutes later, we still haven't mentioned Junior Worlds.
What do we really want to talk about, Jonathan? What do people really want to see? Okay, so people are going to be like, yes, I really want to hear about your thoughts about Trusova. Listen, she landed 2 quads, a bunch of triple-triples. It was amazing. The program was non-existent, really. It was lovely background noise. It was an amazing technical feat. She has wonderful legs together in the air. The big spender felt very John Bonet. I don't know, toddlers and it was, you know, just very uncomfortable. It has been all season. I know people have an ironic love for it. Yes. What do you think, Jonathan?
Like, hey, big spender, spend a little time on your choreography because it's, like, she has good speed and stuff. And, you know, I was going to ask you, you know, after the Olympics, we're really watching the best of the best in many ways. Then you go to something like Junior Worlds, and it feels different. It feels
awful. It feels hard to get through. You feel drunk. You feel hungover. It feels depressing. It feels...
So there were 2 standout performances for me, 2 skaters that still captured me, and the one in the women's was obviously Kostadinaya, who I really enjoyed since we did our junior Grand Prix final recap.
She even stuck out to me more here. I thought her maturity was even more evident and more developed. And
you reward her in that PCS, which I appreciate. Yeah. I was glad to see that she is still being placed above.
And she has such deep edges, and she does a turn and she lets it breathe. She could do it even more, but she does the one thing that North Americans really don't like about many of their Russian skating, is that they rush through the turns, or they're not always done as cleanly as they could, and they're cluttered. She does a turn and
it means something.
It means something in the choreography and the movement, and she lets it breathe, and she expresses the music, and she's a beautiful posture. And
right.
Does she have very large feet? Like, why do her skates always stick out to me? And people need to like explain this.
Them. I do notice them. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because the Atari girls are all so tiny that like the skates are the biggest things on them, but hers seem very like Courtney McCool feet sized. Like
they're Uggs.
Yes.
They're weighing her down in a way. But her ease of movement is beautiful, and she is still a very impressive athlete. You know what I mean? It's not to say she's this like wilting artist type only. So it's unique to see, in my opinion, that kind of choreography actually executed to its fullest potential. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing about. So I went and saw one of my best friends sing at the Met in the fall. Mm-hmm. In a new opera called The Exterminating Angel, and it got a lot of press because it was the highest note ever sung on the Met stage. And it was one of those things when you finally heard it, you were like, yeah, but who cares?
Okay.
It didn't make an impact, not because of her, because of the writing. You know what I mean?
Did it sound like Johnny Weir would skate to it? This has a very Johnny Weir long program type theme. Also, like a who cares, you know?
Film, right, from like the 70s, 60s, 70s, somewhere in there. But in modern-ish music with great orchestral moments and stuff. But it was just, so it doesn't, Johnny needed something more faux dramatic. Okay. But so she sang this highest note, and then you were like, oh, okay, I guess. Yeah. And in a way, Dave, that's how I felt about these two quads. And I know that sounds absurd to say. She landed them. I mean, she always lands like kind of wonky on her feet when she lands. Obviously, it's an incredible feat. Mm-hmm. Of course. But like, somehow it didn't move me. It didn't excite me. It was like,
you know, it is, for me, is that the skating feels like gymnastic-y in a sense that she's doing a feat, but it doesn't feel like a program is behind it.
Right.
And it feels like a jump drill at times. There are times when Zagitava's could, but it was timed better to the music. This felt like she's running. Although it's I appreciate it from an athletic standpoint. I also am like, oh, well, is she going to be able to do that in 2 years?
I think we won't know who she is in 2 years.
We may not. She may also get hurt. Remember, I'm very impressed by this girl, I have to say. Like, hats off to her.
It's incredible what she's done. Yeah, of course.
Incredible. I worry for her and the health, and we will just have to see what happens because we do not know. But Sherbakova also was doing quads last summer and then broke her leg. So you wonder, will it push girls to get quads younger and they'll be doing quads before they're ready? Of course. Remember in the US when triples became in vogue and Jenny and Naomi and every girl that entire generation had hip issues immediately because they were doing triples before they had the strength and they were tearing their bodies apart. And yes, they will, of course, there will be so many casualties. But there's no way to stop it, you know, and there was no way to stop it before, and it's inevitable, and that's sport.
But it's something about it, you know, and I've said this on the show before, like, again, like the triple axel of Midori, the triple axel of Tanya was so big and so exciting. It somehow meant more than then when I saw Mao's live, it was almost so subtle in a way. And, you know, this wasn't a big...
Mao had a more subtle quality to her. It was very beautiful and very seamless, you know?
Yeah, and it's just by nature a smaller jump, but these quads from Trusova, again, incredible. But they were kind of eked out, you know, like they're kind of, you know, this. it wasn't a wow moment. And oh my gosh, it also would have been such a moment had, I don't know, more than 12 people been in attendance.
Yeah.
I feel like that was, it was like watching a training video.
Yeah. It did have that feel. I think that's what it is. I'm sure very live, it would be very exciting. You know, she does seem to carry a lot of speed. I imagine to me, I do think that she skates through the music. Like, the girl did 2 quads and 3 triple triples. I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible.
She was wasted by the end. Like,
Yeah.
I thought, like, her final Bielman was, like, actually just standing still. Like, I mean, she was completely wiped out. Understandably so. But
I'm curious to see where it goes from here. I mean, am I a fan of her? Yes. She's incredible. She's not musical for me in the way that you don't have to be. You can do 2 quads and 3 triple triples. You don't, like, bye-bye, everybody. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, like...
I'd still rather watch Kostyanaya because... And she is doing difficult, you know, triple triples as well.
And
so
I
it's
still wish they sent Shibakova. She won a competition, I believe, against Trusova because Trusova fell in a warm-up competition for this. And that 3 would have been my ideal team. And so it does seem like Terry's skaters are getting better, but it's kind of like Bella Caroli, where people are moving from all over the country to train with her. So she's not everyone is being raised from infancy.
I've heard, but just you know, collecting in one place.
So they will start to look a bit different, you know, as you see like a talented 12-year-old, and they're moving all over. And she has her pick, and then if you're not good, you get kicked to the side, like Sakanovich or Turzenbaeva or whoever else. So when Terry casts you aside, and you're like, you know, what that is, it's rough.
I really liked Paulina T. I hope we see a bit of her next season. But
is she? I don't understand why she's not going to work. I guess because Stanislava doesn't do it for me. I have to say, the fact that she's going...
She's a very Leonova kind of vibe, in a way.
Yeah.
So, and I was thinking that because I did take the time to, like, watch her, and I was like, you know.
I wonder in Russia, I imagine behind the scenes, the politics have to be insane to try to prevent Eteri from getting all of the power. So I think they will try to make sure she has 2 girls, but not 3 on any team. There's always backlash. Whenever someone has too much success, people will start to badmouth and push. And
yeah, I understand.
That happens in gymnastics. It happens. Look.
Well, it was everyone's thought about the Marie-France potential podium at the Olympics. Of course, I mean, obviously circumstances dictated what those results were, but.
I mean, it happened with Marina and Igor after... I mean, the Shibutanis didn't have the best material, but the judges sure let them know it the next year after 2011. So, yeah, it's interesting. They, I'll be very curious what happens in Russia because I think Eteri will keep winning. So, I
was saying for Rika. That was tough. That was a tough
nightmare.
Yeah.
To pop both triple axels, and you know she has had such a good season to get to this point. I mean, she's probably exhausted. It's a very long season for juniors. They have to get up and then down and then build back up and
same. And especially the distance from Japanese nationals to now is ridiculous. How long that was. Yeah.
So I mean, I actually don't think that this has any bearing on her as a skater because she has to be in a strange waiting period. They must be sort of preparing for next season and then sort of preparing for Junior Worlds, and how do you stay mentally up, and your coach is getting Satoko ready for the Olympics, and it's a strange place to be in. That timing for her has not been good. That's
of course.
I think she was great this season when she needed to be, and I know people will point her
at events that were very important. Now, so riddle me this, like, Junior Worlds is an interesting thing. To me, I was much more engaged by, and this could have been situational also, I was much more engaged by the Junior Grand Prix finals as a whole. I mean, obviously it was like all Japan and Russia, but
I think they're pretty on par with each other, I have to say at this point. I know it's very Yuri on Ice to be like, the Grand Prix final, but in a way, in today's age, if you can win a skating championship take it. You know, like, what is worth more? It's like, well, obviously the Olympics, Worlds is great to win. For continents or Europeans, you know, Grand Prix fun. I mean, it's all. I mean, how do you rank? I mean, it's.
And it was interesting because these women are all ready to be competitive on the senior circuit.
Yeah,
now,
I really remember when Raphael was saying that he thinks that, like, it should be almost like 18 and over and 18 and younger, and, you know, there are two different. I'm leaning more and more towards that. You know, in the beginning, I was like, well, don't we sort of have that? But it is two very different things to win as a junior and then to win as a senior. I mean, it's.
Well, and again, it's just like the level of competition happening in the women's event here compared to what was happening in the men's event or in dance or pairs. I mean, I don't see any of those medal winners even being a factor in a remote way, you know, in the Grand Prix series next fall. But all of these girls are. It's several of them. It was quite a deep field also.
It's also because we've seen Eun-soo for some time, who's incredibly talented, by the way. And she...
And very sexual, her programs. Like, just given the context of Junior World Championships, I was like, oh gosh, this is really sticking out as a very, like, sensual program, sensual costumes, like...
So we're definitely going to get in trouble for that, for you saying that, but I do understand what you mean. She has...
Appropriate, like, it was like a James Bondy flirtation.
Yes.
Like,
flirtatious is the better word. Flirtatious.
Okay. It was about an... Yeah, okay. Yeah, God, you know what I mean. Gosh.
I do.
Okay.
It's kind of like, I always... That exhibition that Medvedeva did where she was, like, flirting with the judges last season, and I would never post... Like, I was like, well, it's striking, and that's a nice photos, but it looks like a little... I can't post that. That's kind of the... Yeah, I understand what you mean. What I was going to say about her is that I think that she has a lot of performance ability, that we especially see the way she can captivate an entire audience and command the rink when she is in her exhibition. And I would hope that they just refine her lines and get her to stand in more posture and finish her off. Like, finish the lines and the posture going into some of her triples. In the free skate, I think that she's got a lot of potential and a lot of natural ability. But, I would hope that...
There's a charisma that cannot be taught, and I think the rest of the things will fall in line for her. Because also, as you watch these juniors, are you watching for potential?
Yeah, I mean, aren't you? Are we all? I mean, you're looking for...
Well,
and it's usually, you don't necessarily, I mean, Medvedeva won and then kept winning, but a lot of times you have to look at, like, who has more potential for the future? You know, like, who is good, like, has the raw ingredients now, but who's going to be great? You know, and I think she's someone that I've always looked at, like, she has a lot of good qualities to work with. She can jump, she could, you know, she's got the right look, she has charisma, you know, she's all the packaging, and you put it together. It's the kind of way how you respond to Kosternaya, and you're like, you know, that could be a world champion. Where
Sova, I'm like, I'm worried about your longevity.
Worried,
I don't know if you last long enough to become world
And it's
champion.
not even puberty to me with those jumps, because the fact that she can get around 4 times in the air, that is, I mean, she has very good tech. I mean, look at her feet in the air. What Doug was saying about how they always, you know, the toes, yeah. With her, it's like, how long can a body that's changing and growing and growth plates still open, how is that going to respond to quadruple jumps? You know, when men are doing them, you think, at least traditionally, like, you're more grown. So, and you have more strength, and what is going on? So I don't know. So that'll be very interesting to see what happens. That's a lot of, I mean, she's got 4 years to go for the next Olympics, and at 2 more before she can even compete senior. So, like, I don't know. It'll be very interesting.
The Russian juniors, we see them cycle in about 2-year stints.
Yeah.
You know, like, so a lot will happen.
Listen, if you win anything in Russia, you hold on to that forever. You could be like, I won the 10-year-old championship, and I would be like, you're amazing. Like,
incredible. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Whatever.
And then we met our new friend. I was unfamiliar with her skating, which is Mako Yamashita, who was bringing us very junior Wakaba vibes, or that's at least what she was providing for me.
And Madame Butterfly, and the costume was a little sea urchin-y for me. I don't know. It wasn't.
It was Under the Sea, Madame Butterfly.
Yeah, like what? I don't know. I mean, I got what they were going for, but it was not.
Yeah. It was an interesting choice against Sotoko's, and that singer was not an opera singer. That was like some weird opera version.
I was going to ask you, who was singing that? I was having a Jonathan Byer moment, being like, who is?
Certainly no one that has graced an opera.
You know, Madame Butterfly isn't my favorite. You know, in general, we've talked about this.
Well, the opera, or as it applies to skating?
As it applies to skating. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty phenomenal opera, but like, yeah, Sotoko certainly came the closest to delivering a really exquisite version of it. Yes. But this was just sort of like, I don't understand your desire to do this. The interesting thing is she has that kind of Wakaba, Midori, Japanese movement on the ice in which there is tremendous. I'm trying to word this correctly.
What color should the kimono be? I've always wanted to ask you that. Like, is it purple? Is it like when Christy Yamaguchi was wearing a kimono that looked like a teal bathrobe? Like, remember that on Stars and Ice when she did?
Well, now in the opera, the whole point is like she defies her Japanese culture. So there's like a white kimono when she gets married in Act 1, and then Act 2, sometimes she's in a kimono, sometimes she's in like a variation on it because she's so defiantly like rejecting Japanese culture and trying to be an American.
Jonathan, that makes me so nervous. I think we're going to get hate mail for that, being like, that is not what the opera is about.
Well, I can guarantee you that's what the opera is about.
There are a lot of things that are making me very nervous today about the comments. Jonathan,
let me take it. Yeah, just bring it.
Dear. Okay. Getting back to, yes, so...
But it's like a... I'm reluctant to use... She has a powerful speed that just kind of is a force, right? When she moves on the ice, it's like I don't want to say it's heavy in the ice because that makes me sound like I'm saying something that I don't mean to be saying.
She's a little Ali Raisman-ish. She's powerful.
Yeah, and it's like a slow, like, heavy drive. Like if you're playing Mario Kart.
Higuchi has a similar power.
Yeah.
As did, like, Yoshi Onda and, like...
Yeah,
Yukari Nakano, and
heavy in the skates.
Like she would have been a student of Machiko Yamada, back in the
yes, and her jumps. Well, they don't have the leg wrap, but like her jumps were very enjoyable to watch for me. So, and they seem, as opposed to Trusova, I see the trajectory of these jumps through time. So I'm interested to see how this develops. If she's able to refine with Yamada, or what ends up happening. So.
Did you watch the ice dance, Jonathan?
I did.
Did that girl who won from Russia, and I say this because I have to look up her name again because we're not good friends with these people yet. We've had
Anastasia
Skotkova. All right. So our friend Anastasia and
we can call her Stacy.
Kirill. I don't have my glasses on. Alishin. She reminds me so much of Oksana Domnina. She is giving you such diva from, like, the waist up. She can't extend her leg. Really, that does bother me. And I wish that they still had to do the compulsory dances so that they could kind of fix that. But I really do enjoy them. I'm like, oh, an interesting... female Russian ice dancer. It's been a while since we've had a new one. And it was like, she seems to have just a performance quality to her. I thought they were interesting to watch.
Their opening rotational lift, I think, in the free dance was of interest to me. And they were the only team, I was kind of skimming a little bit here. Mm-hmm. This was a prime example of what I mean, like what the bronze medal or what the silver medal meant in women's meant something very different than what the silver medal meant in ice dance, perhaps, in this competition. And they were the only team that I was like, I understand where you will fit in next fall in the senior division. The rest, I think, will very much languish in some random placements. Yeah.
But I did. Well, the silver here were the Americans, so we have to give. And it was Anthony Ponomarenko, and
some real Farrah Fawcett-ness going on there. That was unique. Yeah.
Yes, with Christina Carrera, they moved up from being. He had like Farrah Fawcett, like that. It was incredible hair. Conrad Orzel too, by the way. I thought like the hair is fantastic. I have such envy. I will never have hair like that.
In particular, she had the wings, and it was a little like
because they were skating to the Wii soundtrack, and it was like you said, generic loveliness. It was generic loveliness with wings and his good hair.
But I didn't even find it generically lovely. I found it just like it was kind of a just add water sort of formula to what they thought was going to be.
I mean, it was very nice. It was nice.
I wanted to push them down so that their knees bent a little bit more. That for me was sort of a detractor from.
I wanted to move them to a coach with that was not burned out of choreographic ideas.
This looked like this was one of those like phone it in, like kind of sometimes we all have love-hate relationships as fans of skating, and like sometimes in this particular event I was like, skating, I need you to have better taste. I
like the Wii soundtrack, but it was so 2015 that it feels 3 years dated, and it was so 2015 2016 we moved on, I thought.
It's not withstanding the test of time.
It was like da 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 da. Oh man, it was a little. Yeah. I think they need to make an upgrade. I think for the future. And look, his father's a technical caller. I mean, things will go really well for him. I mean, you have to hope.
It's true.
Well, Jonathan, the men here were quite the interesting competition. The mixed bag of things that I loved and things Erikovs that I did not. So let's start with something that confused me. Camden Pulkkinen.
Mm-hmm. An image in purple.
Coached by Tom Z. Yet there was a program with arms and a beautiful posture and a head movement and real choreography that was kept in, and
he listened to the music. His body responded with each chord, with each movement. It was really nice to see out of Colorado.
So maybe he's been working more with Drew. I was very confused by this performance. That was not Tom's work. I mean, the jumps certainly, yes, but I really enjoyed it. He was working on the spins, and he moved up, and I was wow, that was
great step sequence.
Yeah,
great step. It's very emotive. It was a really refreshing thing to see. I had enjoyed it also at the Grand Prix final, the Junior Grand Prix final. Mm-hmm. And actually, in a way, the free skate music, the Chopin, but then it kind of gets a little funky, but was more effective for him than the Coldplay even. Mm-hmm. So it brought out a regality in his skating that he really has. And the deportment was really, really, really nice. It defied his training arena.
Yes. Another skater I loved is our little friend from Russia.
New favorite.
Loved. The short program especially, even with the fall. We are talking, I'm blanking on the names today, Jonathan. Artur.
It almost sounded Armenian. Daniel.
Yeah, he probably is like half Armenian. He looked...
Yeah, because you said he looked like
Armin Mamanouzadeh. He has they have a similar haircut in the eye and the forehead. It looks very similar.
Like of Danielle.
Okay.
Danielle. But he was exquisite, and the short program especially was very moving to me. And there are certain skaters that are just these artistic souls. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they are skating for their life. They are skating because something inside needs to be expressed, and the only way they can express it is through their art. Happens in great music, happens in great art, happens in great skating. And he is just one of those guys. And it's a short list, actually, of those guys that kind of get me to respond to a skating program.
He's got it. Yeah.
The program components, I know he fell in the short, but to have him 11th was ridiculous. And then he did the French long. He suddenly catapulted in PCS, but really that short program was very special. And I hope he's very small in stature. And in a different way, you know, we talk about the Russian girl going through body changes and will the jump technique carry through. And he's of a slight frame that makes me hope very much that he is guided properly and safely so that he makes that transition smoothly, because I hope to see him skate for a long time.
Yeah, I enjoyed it really well.
Yeah.
But do you know who I did not enjoy?
Yes, I do know who you did not enjoy, because I didn't enjoy it either. Even when you play that music, it cannot help. So
I really did not enjoy our winner, Alexei Arakov here. He lost me in the first 5 bars. When you saw him skate,
5 bars after seeing him.
First of all, he went out, and I was like, first of all, he looked like he could be Canadian or anything to me. He looked like he could be from anywhere. I was generic look, generic costume. It wasn't very Russian. It was very like whatever. The music comes on. To me, the costume and the music didn't really go together. But I'm like, oh, okay,
Belt kept shifting to the side.
Yeah, I mean, he's tall, and it looks like he could have some lines like stretch out like a Robin Cousins.
Right.
And then he starts skating, and you're like, oh, he doesn't care about that at all. That's
or care about skating in some ways. You know, you had said something where you felt like it gave you a vibe of like he was phoning it in.
Yes.
And I got a vibe like he full blown didn't want to be there. Like when that coach or music teacher or whatever like stops the lesson and is like, I'm not here for me. You don't. I'm not making you skate. Like, just go home if you don't want to. And that was almost the off-putting kind of vibe I got, especially from the free. I just like,
well, when he turned out of the jumps, it wasn't that he turned out of them, but his shoulders and the body language, like, it looked almost lackadaisical, like he wasn't
That's a great
fighting.
Word.
I guess like it wasn't like he wasn't fighting for everything.
Care. How are we supposed to care?
Yeah, it just didn't look like he was really in it. Like it looked like he was letting it happen rather than making it happen. And I thought that was strange.
There was one move early in the free skate that he really held, and then it makes me even more frustrated because I was like, see, I feel like if you tried, you probably could.
Yeah.
This almost seemed like a mental approach issue more than a limitation of talent. Yeah. So that was a tough one for me.
And it was so interesting because he went right after Alexei Krasnozhan, and Alexei got hurt on his first jump, and he was really trying to skate that program. Like he
wasn't giving up. Yeah.
He was not giving up. He was like trying, and then he's like, no, I can't. Yes, I can't. No, yes, and then ultimately had to stop. But I mean, that kid is scrappy. He had told that story that he was in Mishin's group as a kid and was like 12 or so, and like the least talented, got like no assignments, and everyone else was going places. And he's someone who wants to skate and has really made things happen for himself. So I mean, grit, willpower. So I'm sure he will come back and skate again and be near the top. I mean, how heartbreaking to be so close to a junior world title.
It was a confusing withdrawal in that he really didn't leave the ice. And
well, that's true. Like, okay, so someone clearly gets hurt, then they have to go to the ref. But what stunk for him is that he almost, I don't know if he was on that side, but it looked like he was at the side by the gate, and then he had to skate like halfway across the ice on one leg, and then he had to was losing speed, so he kept on having to try to stroke with the bad leg and put the weight on it, and then
it almost looked like he wanted to climb over the barrier.
Yeah, he did not want to have to skate all the way back. I mean, I was wondering, are they going to just let him, are they going to lift him up and get it? Yeah.
Even when he was off the rink, you saw the guy almost lift him, they were unsure of how to proceed, and that's a tough go because again, there's a competitive spirit there. Yeah. Now, I feel like he's been at risk of injury for a while, kind of balancing nationals, and he was the Junior Grand Prix champion, and like I don't know. Yeah, he made me nervous at nationals. I was like, I can see an injury in the imminent future here because it just seems a little wild.
Okay.
The personality and the training to me.
Okay.
So he was another one that was always trying that quad loop, even though
Yes.
I don't know. So I just feared. He seems the type, like you say, who's so tenacious.
Mm-hmm.
That it makes them a little more injury prone also because they're just going to go for it even if they shouldn't. I mean, it's not surprising to me that he almost tried to finish that program even though he sprained his ankle.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it was impressive, but it was that he did not give. I mean, he was trying to like shake it off. You know, it was almost like he was like trying to pull Carrie Struck and like remember when he made the Grand Prix final? He was he was the one that told the coach, he's like, I made the final, you know, and then when he won was so excited, and so he wanted to win this badly.
Right. And probably would have.
Yes, I think absolutely. Come on, did you see the winner? Yes, he would have won if he come on.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And it's so disappointing for him. But I also have to say, I thought that the US pair from Texas who won nationals, and they did very well here. They were not on the podium, but I wanted to give a shout out to Audrey Liu and Misha Mitrofanov. I thought that they had a little bit of a X factor. I mean, they're not. When you watch the winners here, Daria Pavlyuchenko and Denis Koidkin from Russia, that was such a first attempt at their names. But I will say, Daria and Dennis have clearly the technique. They clearly have the polish, the skills.
Yeah.
They look ready to compete.
Right.
And Audrey and Misha don't have that just yet, but they have an overall musicality and talent and pieces that, one, they're not from either Florida or Colorado. I mean, this is a new school of skating. It's a new approach. There's like a breath of fresh air. I mean, it was...
Yeah.
They're rough around the edges, yes, in lots of places, but they look to have there's something there with those two that really stands out to me. They really impressed me at nationals. I like them a lot here. I'm rooting for them. I'm
curious, as we watch and we're watching for certain potential, and with this happens in music a lot with these young kids, some kid that gets into Juilliard at 17, 18, whatever. It's when are you rewarding the polish, and when are you rewarding kind of that raw, intangible thing that you need? Because of course you can teach the rest. You know what I mean? It's and so this was one of those moments. The Russian pair that won had all their tricks in line. Was I moved by their Chicago performance? No, not particularly. But will that come? Can that be cultivated? Like you're saying with this American pair, they have the thing that cannot be taught. So one assumes now the rest can be taught. Yeah. So it will be interesting to see where a lot of these people go, because we have so many junior world championship winners who.
And then there have been so many people, like Naomi Arinam had all of the polish, but then couldn't, her body failed and struggled with the harder technical jumps. And in gymnastics, they're often, people that have all of the polish and none of the skills and don't get that ever. So it's interesting to see.
Sometimes that polish at a young age is putting the cart before the horse, right? And that's what I was saying, like that our tour that we both responded to so much, it wasn't that there was like taught polish instead of technical ability. It was this X factor, this emotive quality you need, and now the rest you can just add around it,
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. I mean,
a lot of new names for me here.
I'm sorry.
A lot of new names for me.
Yes, a lot of new names.
So much outside of the Junior Grand Prix final.
Yeah, it was an interesting Junior Worlds. It's been an interesting few weeks in skating. Anything can happen. I mean, I will be in touch. I think these couple of weeks, it's been very strange. Look, we started. It was like breaking news about Callahan, and it was originally like, oh my goodness, is he still coaching? Is that someone new? And then it was like, oh, he was suspended for something we knew about 20 years ago. And
20
then
years ago. That's the fascinating thing, especially because I think Christine literally said breaking news.
yes.
And that term in and of itself seems unusual for this situation, but I don't know. Who knows? I'm assuming a lot of breaking news in general that we're hearing for the first time.
I mean, the text that I got was from a reporter who said to me, they finally got Callahan. And then it was like, the story's coming. And then, see Christine's tweet, and then the story, so it was like, oh, wow. I mean, but what they did say was they finally got him. That was because this is the biggest open secret in...
Well, for the impact this sport needed to have with this kind of story, it needed to happen when he was a relevant figure.
Yeah.
I think, now it's...
But that shows you how much stuff in these sports is swept under the rug. Because there's so much discussion about, like, how did Larry Nassar happen? Like my aunt, and I'm like, you have to understand the world that these people are in is so different, and people want to get to the top so badly, and people put up with a lot of things. So that... Yeah,
it really is a bubble in so many ways, and then you start to see that odd behavior within the bubble, and it perpetuates itself, and you just accept it as it's not that unusual. And then, as someone on the outside, you're like, hello,
yes,
yeah.
It'll be an interesting couple of weeks, I think. I don't think this story is over, and I think it'll be
and more stories to come.
More stories to come. Yes. So as always, we want to remind you to hold an edge
and skate like Artur did in his short program.
Skate like Artur,
but don't fall.
Don't date your coach. Don't fall. Don't just be safe, everyone. Hold an edge and look sexy. Bye, guys.